Hey there, super sober heroes. It's your host, Sober Steve, here with India Miller. Hello. In person, if you are watching us. And I am so privileged for you to be, after over hundreds of episodes, you're my first in person guest.
Yeah.
I've had even people in town, like friends of ours, like Richard has been on the show, but we did it virtually because he was at work. So you're the first person who actually came in the studio.
I'm so flattered.
It's very exciting. Yes. And so I'm very excited for this interview today. I am 1,357 days sober, and I am grateful for this opportunity to be here with you. So why don't you introduce yourself to the listeners and the viewers?
Hello, I am I'm India X Miller, formerly Jonathan Miller. And I'm in the middle of getting that. My name is legally changed, but I haven't updated my driver's license because issues going on with passports and things right now. But I moved to Sarasota, Florida 2 years ago at Christmas time, unexpectedly. And I'm from everywhere, but I sound very Minnesotan. So they'll never believe I'm a native Sarasotan. And I have been clean and sober this time for a little over 2 years. I had 8 years clean and made a decision to use my mom's pain meds as her caregiver the last 2 nights because my back hurt and it's all I had. And I thought that was okay. And it wasn't. And I had to talk through with my sponsor. And 2 nights really unleashed the beast in my chaos.
Yeah.
If I was really working my program for me, that I work and stuff like it, I wouldn't have done that because I know how it could have ended.
Yeah. I mean, I can definitely understand and I appreciate people like you sharing your stories of relapse because so far I am a one-chip wonder. But I knock on wood every time I say that because I also know that anything can happen and I never know what will happen because I am still relatively early on in this and I have hopefully many years of life left in me. I just want to make sure hearing stories like yours of it's still bad out there. I listen to you all and I believe it because I know it's bad enough out there for us sober people sometimes. I bet if I was adding drinking and drugs into living in this world right now, it'd be very difficult.
If I was a one-chip wonder, I would be celebrating 40 years. That's how long I've been in the world of recovery. I was 17.
Wow.
I came into treatment the first time. So.
Yeah. Today, looking at your life and how difficult things can be in general, what would you say is your favorite part of being sober?
Really getting to be fully present and having opportunities. I can do anything when I'm sober. When I'm using, I literally can't do anything. Whether I'm and my use varies depending on what's going on, or if I'm not one who has a drink and immediately I'm crash in the next day. Mainly because that we talk about substances. Okay, so the alcohol just makes me sick. Sick, and so I get really sleepy, and I'm always known to go to the bathroom and take a cab home because people want to leave. But it introduces that thought process that I can have substances and manage them okay. And I can't because if I have a drink, whether it's a week but I'll get to a place where I'll be like, I'm heavy, just a little skosh of meth would be the center. I'll just do it for a week. Or typically it's this, psychologically, I want to do something with a bad guy, with a parole officer and problems and not compliant. Dialogue about how the disease continues to progress and it does not pick up.
Yeah.
I came in functional at 17 somewhat, and I had some clean time. I went back out and became a party girl and was very successful as a party girl. And it was a lot of fun until it wasn't. And that was during the time where everybody was dying to be the major community. And that was my support now. Amen. And some lesbian women too, of course, and some other trans people, but was really painful. And my experience coming out, I didn't have any family for 8 years. And so that's a whole nother long story.
Yeah.
And I get to show people that you can go through a lot. I've gone through really wonderful experiences of traveling the world in I think 70 countries on being an executive and throughout my gender journey and throughout navigating difficult times. And I think it's really powerful for me that I know that I can get through what's going on as a transgender woman, very out and very proud of it. And I lead with being trans. I don't lead with being a woman, and that's not everybody's perspective. But I'm a trans woman. I'm a woman because I was born with a condition that I had to work through. Being a trans woman in Florida is even more.
My heart breaks for my brothers and sisters, the non-binary family, everywhere in the world, but even in my own backyard. And you are doing the fight every day, and it's so easy for us to look at everything that's fucked right now because it is. But what can you say makes you happy to be part of this community and this movement today, despite everything that's going on around us.
I ended up in Sarasota by accident, and it is, I'm not talking figuratively, it is literally the epicenter of the Christian nationalist movement. I rented a vacation rental to bring my mom to, who had Alzheimer's for the winter, and who wanted Gulf Shores, Alabama. We ended up here. And I believe that whatever we call a higher power, or whatever is supposed to happen, I ended up here at probably one of the most challenging times for a transgender person to be here. And I have meetings all the time with this woman who helped offer the Don't Say Gay bill. And I'm there, and I'm saying gay, and I'm saying trans. So I feel hopeful. I feel a sense of purpose. I feel outrage, but I don't use anything chemically to get through that. And I'm proud of that.
Yeah.
I'm really proud of it. And I get to go into a lot of organizations and share my story. They do like a weekly thing at a treatment center here that I get to go into. And it's an organization that historically has not been supportive of the people. And they let me come in there. I don't believe in a deity. That's not my thing. And talk about my religious trauma growing up and how the word God is triggering and churches can be triggering. And I get to do that. And I feel like those people, when they come out into whatever rooms they're going to go to for recovery or whatever programs, hopefully I've left them with a pretty good, or at least an open mind that they can meet somebody who is transgender or LGBT or queer and have a positive experience. Because when I first moved here, I went to a 12-step meeting, and I've never had anything like that happen in my life. I went to give someone a hug, and at the end of the meeting, that's what we do in that program. And he recoiled from me and told me to fucking kill myself, you fucking faggot. And that is not the general person here, but it was like, it just was like, where am I? And then I got the phone call from Planned Parenthood that they couldn't fill my prescriptions because the governor had changed the law. It's so bad here in Florida that that's just so normal that I'm not even going to tell a trans person that the hormones they started 36 years ago. Because I came out as trans in 1989 originally, before the internet, and there was no hate. It's just like the demons were inside my own head versus now. So I love that I get to be a face in the community, and addiction and alcohol abuse has been such a rampant part of society, but so much in the LGBT queer community, I think. And I have a lot of ideas of why that is for me, but if I give up so much to be who I was, and in my generation, the thought of having children as an LGBT or queer person wasn't even in the cards. And so I was like, okay, I just party every night and everybody's got to go home to their kids. And I'm definitely that person where the party is fun very quickly.
Yeah, the party is fun. I don't want to go right now. The party's over.
And so I helped start a new LGBTQ and allies meeting in a fellowship here where we didn't have one.
Yeah.
That right now, I knew I was transgender ever since I knew the word of transsexual. I knew it was, but all of a sudden it's a political issue. And we don't bring politics into meetings. Just because you're calling it a political issue, this is
human rights. And that's the thing, is like,
medical issue.
just because one person in one role says that it's a political issue, it's not.
And really difficult to navigate, feeling comfortable sharing
I was gonna
what
say,
makes me want to relapse, because it is, and not that I want to relapse, but that is what is disturbing me on every level. So it's hard, it's tough times to navigate.
yeah, I can it's making me, sure you encounter things like that all the time in meetings, but like I had even the other day, I went to my first ACA meeting, and so much of that was like powerful information, learning about like myself in a new way. But also one of the people at the meeting was wearing an American flag on their t-shirt, and automatically that put all of my like emotional defenses up in a way that I normally wouldn't. It's just so sad. As they were sharing, it was like, also I wasn't wrong either. And it's sad that that's become something that is almost a weapon against us, but it's also something like when people wear it to meetings or bring things up into meetings or politics, but it gets so dicey.
Veteran that I know fought for the flag, and it means so much to them. And now you see the flag and you automatically assume it's somebody that hates you, and it's really traumatizing for those people in particular. But I feel the same. And I don't understand how the rainbow flag has become so traumatizing for the people. But the American flag shouldn't traumatize anyone but an enemy. But the president of the United States has called me anti-American.
Yeah.
Just because I'm a trans female. He literally said those words. And I feel like that's instigating violence. And like, you are talking about enemies within and saying I'm anti-American. I feel like most people don't I don't think they really feel that way, but it feels outlying nutjobs.
I've been to meetings before where it's the one or two people will change the entire shift of a group of 20 or 30.
Right.
So, yeah.
And so it's going to be, it's going to have an impact on LGBTQ people in recovery,
Yeah.
especially in places where they didn't have queer accepting spaces or stuff. It's important for me to go to those meetings and talk about the trauma of losing everyone to AIDS. We have that through our experience. And a lot of them were straight people, but they were addicts. Everyone I knew was an addict or queer, and which was a fighting word back then. So there is that shared experience that's really helpful for me.
What was your journey to recovery like?
I was born to a mother who was on prescription amphetamines because she was gaining too much weight during the pregnancy, and Valium. And so I would have been in that category of however we identify babies that are born. And then I had a father who was mentally ill, and drinking was normal. We were offered alcohol like at 5, 6 years old. We just didn't think about things like that back then. And so I go to the bars with my dad, drinking a lot. When the nightclubs at 10 years old and drinking the ice cream drinks, as my identity started sorting itself out, the complex and stuff, I started at 9 or 10 realizing I could smell household things and get feeling like nail polish and represent, and kept progressing. And then my life became more chaotic. It's hard to explain this in a short version, but I ended up living in a tire factory in high school with my dad, who was very mentally ill, like a metal, the cement floors in the window. Through high school, he sold the company and moved and didn't tell me where. I became homeless my senior year of high school and lived in a van, showered at the truck stop. I went to school, everything was fine. Everything was always fine. And a teacher figured it out and put me to a house with another student that I didn't know their family, and that's where I stayed. I was in Florida, and I left and went up to Wisconsin to go to college. By then, I was smoking pot a lot, introduced to stimulants and hallucinogens, and even pork was on the academic blacklist. And then they politely just asked me to leave. My mother and my sister came, and I was 17 years old. I know that because they took me 3 hours to a treatment center in Wisconsin, out in the country, and I stayed there. As soon as I turned 18, I walked out. That's where I first found 12-step begins. And a part of my upbringing was going to a Pentecostal church. When it came to light that I found this boy attractive, I didn't know it was a problem. It was a huge problem. I was possessed by demons, and I believed that. They had exorcisms done from the church. So immediately, my introduction into the 12-step programs was difficult because I've always had that experience of I was devoutly faithful. I had such a strong belief in my faith system and my deity, but I had a calling to be a priest, woman, or Catholic, a minister later, and not having vocabulary to understand what I was, I felt so different always. And I felt different in the treatment center. And everyone was like 50 years old, which was so old when I was 17. And everyone was there for alcohol. And I was there for drugs. And I felt really isolated. And they were very shaming a lot of times about, you're a drug addict. If we just can't control alcohol. And that's the way it was then. So I went to different programs. And that was my introduction. And I managed to get into it and stay clean. But I think it was more the social aspect of it that was working for me. Then I figured out I was trans, the whole nectar experience come through. That it's hard to rush through the story, but my coming out experience was very traumatic. And my mother, who had the best intentions, and I know how it would sound, but her and I decided my best option was to kill myself. And I tried and was not happy when it wasn't successful. When I woke up in the hospital in a psych ward, and I kept trying every way I could in there. I just never believed I could have an okay life. And I knew I was a girl that didn't make any sense. I thought I must be schizophrenic, and they were trying to convince me that I wasn't. But it was the only thing that made sense to me to so deeply know who I was. And so I got committed to a group home for a year for the mentally ill. And that's where I actually transitioned to female. And so I had periods of being clean, but I never truly embraced that concept that I have a disease. I literally have a disease, and in every disease, this point is it kill you, right? It's my life is awful. That's the way, that's not how they work. You just get influenza, I'd feel better. And I always think I have it. That's my problem. I've got this, and life takes off, and I'm like, oh my God, I'm 30 years old, and I have nothing to show, and I should work really hard and make up for it. At times, I had a lot of shame about being in recovery. I didn't have any shame about being an addict because I was a party addict, but being clean, and ended up working in like Wall Street and talking about being a drug addict when, people are dealing with millions of dollars. I was on the equity side, the investment banking side of things. And I still feel like that sometimes because I'm out speaking, people come up to me and they're like, we were going to leave here, but we're staying because you said you're going to stay. And I'm like, oh my God, like I've been on the psych ward. Yeah. I'm like, don't listen to me. I've been on a psych ward. I've been a drug addict. I survived somebody trying to kill me and torturing me for hours in my home and they never been caught. I've lived through all of that, but I really thought that being tortured for 6 hours in a chair in the basement and literally fighting to escape with my life, obviously I will never use drugs again. Right? That is such a horrific experience that would not have happened if I wasn't using, because my judgment would have been better. I wouldn't even been looking for a roommate that would have had money. I wouldn't have wanted a party-friendly one. I wouldn't have said I was trans. I stayed working program and doing things, but I couldn't get better. I wanted to stay in my house because I owned it for 25 years where it happened. And I went back and forth living as a guy over the years. Not because I stopped feeling trans, but after 8 years of living as a woman and hormones, I went back to living as a guy because all of my friends said I couldn't be working and hosting parties for a living and doing drugs. And I had to figure out something completely new. And I decided I needed my family and like maybe it would just be easier. And then my career took off out of nowhere. I stayed clean for about 7 years after I transitioned back. And I can remember the moment that I made the decision not to. Yeah. And I was at a wedding in Napa Valley at a vineyard with 20 people. And it was one of my employees and another employee was there. And they're giving like wine from the vineyard there. And I'm like, it feels like ethically wrong to not have a glass of wine at a vineyard for a wedding for this couple that I adore. And I remember an employee looking at me and they're like, are you sure? Yeah. Sometimes quickly, sometimes slowly. Now I'm at the point where I think if I use it, it goes downhill really fast. Yeah. But after that point, I had a program, then COVID hit. Sponsor was relapsing, didn't admit it, nodding off, and the pills fell out of reverse. And all of a sudden there were meetings. And I was in a small town in Wisconsin at that point, taking care of my parents because I moved over by them. I couldn't say my house anymore. I was able to stay clean. I was able to transition back to female in that house where it happened. And I had roommates and pit bull and security system. When that all fell apart, that was at the exact same time my parents were failing at living with. My mom and her husband both had Alzheimer's. She had dementia, he had Alzheimer's, they both had cancer. And we made a quick decision that it would just make more sense than to pay, I think, thousands of dollars a month for each of them to I want to say it was like $9,000 a month or something. It was just the same.
For the two of them together?
Yeah. And I did. And again, I thought I had it. And I didn't even know there were Zoom meetings. There probably were, but I didn't know about them. And there was, this was a very small town with a very small recovery community. And I was like full time trying to figure out like, how do you deal with people that are trying to wander out of the house? I had to put alarms on things. And so it just like putting my recovery first didn't hurt me as being important because I had such a experience that alone would keep me clean. Yeah. But for me, I need to not only do steps, I need to apply them and I need to stay connected. If you told me I didn't need to go to meetings or do the program, and I could stay clean. I probably do that sometimes. Yeah. That joy and connection when I share some batshit crazy thing. Yeah. And I'm like, oh, I'm gonna share. I know I'm the only transgender person in the room, but I just need to share where I'm at. And some guy with a huge pickup truck and 6 baby mamas comes up. He's like, I really related to your share, and I'm like, awesome. Yeah. I'm like, I can't imagine what part, but it's so weird what people get out of just being real. Yeah. And in those meetings, I'm in a real space. That's where I'm really authentic and I don't feel the need to put on a happy face or I don't really feel pretty transparent for the most part. Like I will cry on social media if I need to. And I'll cry in a parking lot, in Publix or something. I don't go there anymore, actually. It's important for me to be authentic there. And I don't have any secrets at this point in my life. And I realize that's not everybody's approach, but it's I had a minor stroke in 2022. There's no such thing as a minor stroke. Over at my mom's funeral. Yeah. And it really was hard. Stroke that midweek syrup. So it's hard for me to keep track of stuff anyway. I've just had this wonderful luxury right now of just being completely transparent and open and honest about being in recovery.
I've definitely like when I first started my first like dozen episodes, I was like, what traditions? I'll just say whatever I want. As I learn, I think like for me, like with these podcasts, like the anonymous stuff is like the people, places, and things. But like I like talking about the fact that I do 12-step meetings. Like I don't say specifically which ones a lot of times with people, but like I feel like when I'm out and about and connect to people, things that they connect with me about are like the fact that I'm sober from drugs and alcohol.
Yeah.
The fact that I've lost 80 pounds. The fact that I like all the fucked up shit about me that makes me feel icky or that I used to feel shame over when I share that out loud. And that's what people connect with me about.
Absolutely. And I think it's so important to share that I'm in recovery. I think it's so important to share that I'm trans because I never realized that some people don't know that I'm trans. I know it's important because I think it's relevant to why I'm usually talking about what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
I think it's so important for people to know that I'm in recovery. You take on that burden that I think the program intended of if I fail, then it makes the program look bad. But every approach for recovery has a failure rate and a success rate. I wish we could look at some of those things in 12-step world and realize like we evolve from the time that these programs are written to now when we live in a digital age and stuff. Maybe there's room to like think about some of these concepts differently, but I find that's really difficult.
Leave and leave the rest, or take what I want and leave the rest. But they're the ones who told me to take it.
It's hard, right? It's just like gender inclusive language was a big battle in the programs. And why? That is not a fundamental part of the program.
I was just saying, if we can update the name of our golf so quickly, why can't we update the name of how we've been calling our friends and loved ones?
If we're going to talk about God being our higher power, and so many people, if you just look at the world, so many people are not believing in God by the time this was written.
Yeah.
Why not be more open-minded?
I like higher power most of the time, and I'll use God for shorthand, but if I do shorthand and I'm writing, I normally just write HP, but for me, it's higher power. For other people, it's God. For other people, it's the universe.
I have a secret decoder in that I can take God and turn it into HP, but when I'm actively feeling very persecuted by the same religion that I grew up in, that God becomes that God in my head pretty easily when I'm in trauma. I don't want to go to meetings. I don't want to work steps with the word God, and I know that I'm supposed to be well enough that I can say group of druggies or I can say greater understanding of what I'm doing. And sometimes it's just really hard for me to do that. I've gone to some secular meetings and things, but the controversies that we put in the 12-step programs of, that's not the program, or that's not. I go to some inclusive meetings that use gender inclusive language, in the readings. I'm like, that's not the program because that's not, you can't mess with that. I'm going to do what I need to do to not use drugs and alcohol.
I'm very gladly when I got sober, it was like a Zoom 9 p.m. queer beginners meeting in New York City. It was all about protecting everyone's feelings. And it got very difficult to time it out when I was doing service on the back end of having to protect everyone's feelings. But I appreciate what it does is right off the bat, it was always gender inclusive to the point where when I would go to meetings in town and they were queer and still to this day in 2025 use gendered language and sometimes end with the Our Father. I'm just like, what?
I can't do that.
I'm just like, I don't understand it, but at least like now, like I don't, like I used to like visibly roll my eyes or like guffaw or want to leave, and now I can just like grit my teeth a little bit, or some days it doesn't even bother me if I'm working my own program very well, but like it's hard because it's just like when it's like our people, especially, like we expect safe spaces. I feel
I mean, if you've been molested or sexually assaulted, to expect that person to come into a program that has the word God. If you've been ritually abused, immature, or like I was, had exorcism done until you're possessed by demons as a teenager. That's a lot. Is it catching our recording?
Yeah, it is.
Oh, perfect. I'll land the dismount.
Yeah.
That's a lot. And I just wish we'd be more open-minded, about that. And I feel like it doesn't exclude people who believe in Jesus Christ as a personal savior or any God. It's just, I'm so not resistant to change that it's hard to understand people that are going to throw this up, the risk that somebody might die from addiction.
Yeah.
It's like, it's that important to me to keep the word men and women, or the word God, or the Our Father prayer when I know where we're based off. I don't know what we need
things
to do.
can grow.
But things can grow and change, and that we're in this country.
You are part of the change, and that's one of many, many things that I love about you.
I'm trying. But even in the LGBTQ community, living in Florida is so different from anywhere I've lived because I think people that are from here in particular, people that come here, feel this need to be well-behaved women or well-behaved gays. And some are. Some people, that's just their natural being. I can be a corporate American, but I don't need to be. And I should be celebrated the same, whether I have purple hair or I'm wearing a suit. And that's hard to do here. And so I feel like the diversity community sometimes down here feels like the Stockholm syndrome almost.
We make our kidnappers happy so
Right.
they
Oh,
don't
no, I
punish
don't
us.
think that. Go along with it.
Make the people like treat us really nice when we get to the camps. And I'm like, I would rather fight not to be in the camps.
It's an environment. And don't get me wrong, I love my life here. I have been treated so well here. It happened on a Zoom down then too, because all the other 2,000 people that I've had programs here have been supportive and nice for the most part. That's my disease mind wants me to focus on that person.
Yeah.
And I was telling you before we started recording that I had some guy in a parking lot today. Asked him to smash you in the face. And it wasn't even because I was trans. It was because I would talk to him about, do you have any people that come into your shop?
Yeah.
Like, do you have any immigrants? Or
Yeah.
triggered this, what I think was a biracial, I'm pretty sure as a biracial person, to do all of that, like yelling at me. I'm like, you're lucky you're a girl, I'd kick your ass. And I'm like, well, at least it was gender affirming. Yeah. I had no makeup on. I was just buying a donut. If everyone doesn't know why that exists, I'll tell you right now, it comes from the concentration camps in Germany. We were forced to wear these in the streets of Nazi Germany to identify us as queer people so we could be humiliated and mocked. And then eventually put in concentration camps. And when the Allies liberated the concentration camps, all the people who weren't LGBT were freed.
Yeah.
And I can't imagine what that felt like for people like you and I that were there when we realized we didn't get freed from the concentration camps. We got moved into prison. And I'm like, just that moment of surviving the horrors of Auschwitz. And then that moment of, oh my God, we finally we're free. And then you're left behind. And I relate to that so deeply because I felt that when we had Black presidents. I'm like, oh my gosh, we're going to have a new vision that everyone has equality and equal opportunity. And so it's so disorienting for me to be at the place that we're in right now when we know there are XX chromosomes and XY chromosomes and people are telling me, you can't change your DNA. I'm like, but you don't know what mine is because there's actual X. So people just have an X that don't have any Y or another X. There's people that have 3 X's. There's people that have XXY and people that have both. And we know why some of that happens, right? We know the boy and a girl, twins that are in the womb, if one absorbs the other one, we know that's a parasitic twin. We know this through science.
Right.
And we know when that happens, you can have both XX and XY cells in different parts of their bodies. I don't know why it's difficult for people to understand that things happen in the amazing process of being born.
Yeah.
And I've always been an advocate that, like, I don't need to defend why somebody is gay. If you love vaginas and you were born with a penis and that's your thing, you're like a straight man, but you go to a gay club and you're like, that music is so much better.
Yeah.
And they're not raising kids and they're having fun. I'm going to be gay. Like, that should be okay.
Yeah.
That should be okay in a society that you just want to be gay. I don't think that's the case for most people.
Yeah.
But it should be okay. We shouldn't have to defend it. But boy, as a transgender person right now, and even in the queer community, and it has always been mixed bag.
Yeah.
When I came out as trans, we were not allowed in a lot of men's gay clubs. We didn't really have a lot of lesbian clubs around in those days, but I went to a big club in Los Angeles with all my gay friends who wanted me to come because I was going to all the circuit parties and things, and they would not let me in. Called Probe. And it was a big old scene, and I had to take off my platforms. That was the final straw. They weren't going to let me in. And they told all the guys that I was with to go into the club ahead of me because they were afraid they'd get beat up and that I'd get beat up. And some stranger gave me his combat boots, and I put his combat boots on. He walked down the street barefoot, and I went into that club and had an amazing night. And ended up going back there. This was like 93 probably. And talking to their employees about being transgender. And then I was the belle of that club. And so drugs kill everything for me.
Yeah.
When I used to go talk to classes of psychiatrists, about my experience, like I went from being desperate to stay alive to thriving if I'm just allowed to be. And again, this was before the internet. It's how we change things or inform people through our stories. And that's why I think this is so important.
Yeah.
And I think documenting stories on the internet and the books and understanding where we've come from is always going to be important.
With all of that being said, to close it out for someone, if they're listening and they're struggling to stay sober, what would you say is like the number one thing in this while we're living in right now that helps keep you sober?
I would say it's as much as I can do in giving back is very helpful for me. I get to do a weekly recovery class at a place, and I get to tell my story as part of the 12-step fellowship that I'm in. I feel connected to those people, and it gives me an additional incentive because I don't want to see them I don't want to see them give up their joy. And so that helps me a lot. And then just being open to meditation, medicines, or medications like East versus West, and things that I've traditionally been pretty close-minded about. I even go to church. I volunteer at a lot of churches. I do not identify as a Christian, but I've gotten to a place where I love the concepts that I've read about in that message of social justice in particular, and helping the disenfranchised, marginalized people, focusing on keeping myself spiritually centered somehow, and to varying success. And I have a great sponsor. I have a partner who's in recovery, which is amazing, and is also trans, which is even crazier, and a military hero. So that's really helpful for me too. But I'm not going to give up my joy. I'm going to give up my life. I'm not going to wait backstage while we get through this. There's no dress rehearsal. We are on stage. This is the life, and I'm going to live it. And if I'm going to go out over something, it's not going to be somebody that hates on me. That's just not how my story is going to go. And just the more connected I am in the recovery world, the better.
Thank you for coming on.
We've talked this for so long.
Yes, I was going to say, I'm sure that this is only the beginning. You'll have to come back because you're going to, hopefully, I think you're going to be involved in Here Queer Sober with us, correct?
I hope. I look forward to going to New York then.
We'll figure it out. Even if it's like me driving you and Jack, and like we road trip it up, like we're going to get you up.
I desperately want to be there. And then I want to have you on my radio show.
Yeah, of course.
You're going to try to help me figure out podcasting. I'm just trying to get my voice out there as somebody who's not scared as a trans person right now, because I realize so many are, and I understand why.
Perfect. I'll definitely put all of your ads for your social medias in the show notes. Any other special websites or places they should find you?
I think I'm India X Miller on everything that I know how to use.
Miller on the show notes.
Yeah,
okay.
It's Transis Her, TRANSISHER radio on WSLR, and it's out there. They have an app that you can download and podcast and listen to the arc.
Perfect. Well, I said thank you. Thank you so much, listeners. And yes, you will be back here before you know it. So thank you, and stay tuned for another episode of Gay A next Thursday. Bye.